So we have venture firms that will take our students for the summer and just buy their time for the summer, give them an investment so they can think through what a startup might be that they'd like to work on. So there's this opportunity now that wouldn't have existed even 5 or 10 years ago.
Hey, it's Dr. Emily DeJeu, host of TEP Perspectives. If you like what you're seeing, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. For generations, universities have prepared students to join organizations. But now, should universities be preparing students to build those organizations? In this episode, I sit down with Carnegie Mellon's inaugural Vice Provost for Entrepreneurship, Meredith Meyer Grelli, to discuss why entrepreneurship is becoming a more central part of higher education, how students' career aspirations are changing, and what all of this means for universities. Meredith Meyer Grelli, welcome.
It's so nice to be here with you, Emily.
Oh, we're glad to have you because I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about. So I want to start, though, by just acknowledging that you are an experienced, very seasoned entrepreneur. So you've experienced entrepreneurship from multiple perspectives. You were a Tepper MBA. You launched Wiggle Whiskey. You have experienced it as a faculty member, helping students build their own ventures, leading Project Olympus in the Swartz Center. And now, most recently, you have this new role as Vice Provost of Entrepreneurship for the university. So lots of entrepreneurial experience from many angles. When you look back, maybe to just as you were entering your MBA, at the environment you entered as an aspiring entrepreneur, and then you compare it with what students encounter today who are aspiring entrepreneurs, what do you think has changed the most in that time?
So I love this question because it allows me to say right off the bat, there are very few places better in the world to start a company than Carnegie Mellon right now.
Nice. Listen carefully.
But if I could even go further back to sort of the CMU origin story, because, we often think of Andrew Carnegie as one, the founding force behind the university.
Right.
We were really founded by a founder, Andrew Carnegie, and a venture capitalist, Andrew Mellon, who was one of the most active and earliest venture capitalists in America.
Yeah.
And so that entrepreneurial DNA, I think, just continues to fuel the university.
Yeah.
And we were just talking earlier about how we are so up by your bootstraps in our culture here.
Yep.
That is the entrepreneurial culture of Carnegie Mellon. We are a young university. We don't have the biggest endowment, and yet we lead the world in the most important investable areas of venture capital in the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
And you do that if you have an entrepreneurial spirit and if it bleeds through the entire institution.
Absolutely.
So, Tepper specifically has also always been a really entrepreneurial place.
Yeah.
GSIA Tepper was the first business school in America that had an entrepreneurship center.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting. Yeah.
So there's always been this sort of life force around innovators and builders and founders at this business school. In 2016, though, that's when we got this incredible foundational gift from Jim Swartz, who was the one of the founders of Excel Venture Capital, which is one of the most important venture capital firms in the world.
Yeah.
And he gave a transformational gift to the university to really fuel future innovation and produce more unicorns out of Carnegie Mellon talent.
Yeah.
And so that, when I was a student here, I was a Swartz Fellow, but it was before this really transformational gift.
Yeah.
And so, to be a Swartz Fellow then, you really, I think they just went around and said, who wants to be a Swartz Fellow? And you raised your hand.
Yeah, right.
Now it's actually quite a competitive process, and it's university-wide.
Yeah.
And the students who are Swartz Fellows, they go on to build really impressive companies while they're here as students. And we are really proud to be able to provide them support to do so.
Yeah.
So it's our entrepreneurship ecosystem has certainly matured since the time I was an MBA here, but the spirit has always been there.
I like that. Yeah. So the idea that this through line of entrepreneurship as a thread throughout Carnegie Mellon's history, pretty unique.
Yes.
To this university.
Yes. And core to our identity.
Yeah. And then really a huge sort of acceleration and ramp up of that in a big way in the last decade.
Absolutely. In the last decade, we're now, Bloomberg, we're a top 5 entrepreneurship school, the business school. We're top 10 in U.S. News. There's just an overall recognition, I think, globally of the power of innovation and entrepreneurship coming out of Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah.
And if I could go back to CMU is this unique place that made really big bets in particular areas 50 or so years ago, right?
Right.
And I know you've talked about this in other episodes, but, we made really big bets in AI and, built the first AI models here.
Yeah.
We took a really big bet by building the largest robotics institute tied to a university in the world, which is still bleeding edge.
Yeah.
And so business students who are here at Tepper now have this incredibly unique advantage to build companies alongside the researchers and students who are building at the leading edge of those two areas.
Oh, yeah. Huge, huge. Well, let's talk specifically about students. We just mentioned them. You've seen tremendous interest in entrepreneurship from students across CMU. You just mentioned that, now being a sports fellow is like university-wide, highly competitive. What do you think is behind that interest? In other words, when students show up at the Sports Center, what are they coming to you looking for?
Yeah, I think, it's continuing to evolve very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, interest is surging. The Swartz Center, which serves students, staff, faculty, and alums across the university.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who has a tie to CMU, the Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship is built to serve them.
Right.
This past year, we served more than 450 founders across 25 programs that we run.
Yeah.
We've had every program that we run has had tremendous increases in applications.
Yeah.
So our McGinnis Venture Competition, which is our pitch competition, had a 70% increase in applications this year.
Wow.
Our Venture Bridge, which is our alumni, as soon as you graduate from CMU, you're eligible to apply to Venture Bridge. It's our accelerator program, and we write checks into companies.
Yeah.
That had a less than 5% acceptance rate this year. We had so many applications. And so there's this, every year for the past 10 years, you see an increase, but we see an even more market increase in the last couple of years in interest. And so your deeper question is, what's driving that?
Yeah, what are students, when they apply and it's so competitive, but they're seeking it out, what are they looking for when they come to you for those programs, do you think?
I think that there's a couple things going on. I think the first is fairly philosophical here, but I think they're coming for agency.
Oh, interesting.
We are living in this period of course, the pace of innovation is hastening. It breeds uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the number of job opportunities, especially for those without years of work experience, it's becoming more competitive.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship and the skills around entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial mindset, flexibility, adaptation, seeing change as an opportunity and looking for the white spaces and where the new needs are and how you can solve them in really interesting ways. Those are all really applicable skills right now. And so I think there's a self-efficacy that students are looking for when they say, I want to start a company.
Yeah.
I think what they're actually saying is, I don't want to be the pawn of this overall market. I want to be in control of my own destiny in some form.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a way that feels navigable with support.
Totally.
I think there's also just a unique moment in time where they have an extraordinary opportunity.
Yeah.
I know we were in a meeting together the other day, and I used this quote from a recent book.
Yeah.
People might have read this book. It's How to Rule the World. And it was written by a Stanford undergrad. And he has this quote in there that it's easier to raise VC money than it is to get an internship right now. And for many of our students, they're finding that to be true to some degree.
Which is wild.
So we have a database of all of our investors that we work closely with, about 4,700 investors. Many of them are enlisting students to be their scouts on campus.
Yeah.
They're working actively with our students. They're making big bets on students that they see as high potential, high agency, even before they have a particular idea to work on. So we have venture firms that will take our students for the summer and just buy their time for the summer, give them an investment so they can think through what a startup might be that they'd like to work on. So there's this opportunity now that wouldn't have existed even 5 or 10 years ago.
Wow.
So I think there's this mix of this need, this deep-seated philosophical need, in a time of great uncertainty,
Oh, yeah.
along with this incredible opportunity that is fairly
Yeah.
pronounced right now.
What do you think is driving? I mean, what you're describing, you said 5 or 6 years ago, the idea of a VC firm funding a student's summer, and that student has not necessarily even conceived of a venture, much less sort of put it together, done market research, and pitched. That's so novel in the last couple of years. What do you think is driving that?
I think there's, I think for CMU in particular, investors are recognizing the depth of talent here.
Yeah.
Carnegie Mellon has always been a very humble place, sort of a gem among universities. And I think investors started coming here in the past number of years and realizing how underserved our market was in some ways. And so now we see just a tremendous, a flood of interest.
Yeah.
That maybe there's some sort of talent arbitrage opportunity here because, while they've been distracted maybe by Stanford, now, they're seeing the level of talent. So I can't tell you how many meetings I have where investors say, here are the 4 schools we're paying attention to, or here are the 3 schools. And CMU is, of course, on those lists.
Yeah.
In a way that maybe 10 years ago, we were producing the best engineering and talent, great business talent to corporations, but we might not have been thought in the same way as the CEOs of startups.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about students, right? I want to zoom out a little bit and think about like higher education more broadly, right? CMU more broadly. Universities have traditionally put a lot of resources into preparing students to join existing organizations, as you just mentioned, but not necessarily to start their own organizations. CMU has now created this Vice Provost of Entrepreneurship position. You're the first to occupy that role. Is this a sign maybe that universities are thinking differently about preparing students for the workforce and what that landscape will look like after college?
Yes, absolutely. I think we're at this really pivotal moment for higher ed, of course, in thinking about what the future of higher ed looks like. There's certainly recognition that, wow, our alum, our, and CMU affiliates, including our faculty and others, have created $1 trillion of value in companies. We've produced 67 unicorns. So while we might not have named this, it has been happening to an extraordinary degree. And now as we think about what the future of higher ed looks like, we believe that these entrepreneurial skill sets are more important than ever.
Yeah.
And just like, I love how you framed it, because sort of the bet we used to sort of make on large corporations hiring all of our students, that's shifting, right? Our top public companies, they used to have a lifespan of pretty close to a human lifespan, 80 some years. Now that lifespan is trending to about 15 years.
Wow. Yeah.
So the companies that are going to make up all of our portfolios for those invested in the market, as well as be our employers, there are companies we're building now.
Right.
And we'd like our students to be the ones that are building those.
Yeah.
So I think there's that piece. I think the other piece is CMU students have always been builders. That's just, they are biased towards building, towards solving big problems. And we are also, as an institution, I think, pretty unique in our composition, that we have these broad, diverse strengths across disciplines. And entrepreneurs, the research will say that folks who do well at entrepreneurship are really good at what we call associative thinking.
Okay.
And that's connecting disparate thoughts, ideas, and industries.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so CMU is really built for that kind of thinking. And in the age of AI, we also believe that the highest value our students will bring are in those areas of translation between disciplines.
Yeah.
And so entrepreneurship is a natural sort of connecting fabric between all of these disciplines, whether our students start companies or not, whether they lead a nonprofit or work to get legislation in place, or whatever the artifacts that they bring to the world to bring impact to the world are. We believe these skills will be essential to them going forward.
I see. Yeah, that's interesting. So the idea, not necessarily that higher ed needs to think about shifting towards. We are preparing you to become a CEO of your own small startup, but really we are leaning into the bundle of skills that are entrepreneurial in nature, understanding that will better prepare you for whatever's next, whether it's starting your own venture or moving into an existing role of some kind.
Yes. And I think the sort of legacy artifacts of higher ed, writing papers, doing problem sets, as knowledge becomes commodified through AI, there's just more and more interest in allowing students to build and explore producing artifacts that actually have real world impact while they're students, and giving them credit for doing that. So we're exploring all kinds of innovative ideas and how to really encourage students and allow them to build in interesting ways while they're getting credit while they're here.
Oh, which I'm sure they love.
Yes. Yeah.
Big draw to CMU.
Yeah.
All right. So we can't let you leave without talking briefly about a super cool new event that you're organizing.
Yeah.
So from September 14th to 18th, CMU and then other partners right from across this region are launching StartUP PGH, a new week-long celebration of Pittsburgh's startup and innovation ecosystem. Could you tell us a little bit about this event, and if we were to extrapolate out what you think this means maybe for the future of this region as maybe a hub of entrepreneurship and innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are building this event upon, so last year we did a CMU Startup Week for the first time in CMU's history. And that week, which we put together sort of in entrepreneurial fashion very quickly, we had about 25 events over 4 days, and we found an explosive level of interest. We had 2,000 people.
2,000 people
participate. We had 200 investors and corporate partners fly in for it. And so as we thought about how we wanted to do it even bigger this year, we said, let's get all of our regional partners on board and make it a regional effort. So including University of Pittsburgh, West Virginia University, all of our economic development partners, the city, the state, the county. So we have 16 partners that have been working to build a region-wide startup week for Pittsburgh. And we have more than 50 events planned throughout the week. We expect to greatly grow the number of folks engaged. And the events go from, we have a lab to market event where we show off a bunch of our researchers who are commercializing bleeding edge work and have great debates about their disciplines, to a startup job fair where last year we had about 35 startups talk about what they're working on, and they had about 1,000 students attend that job fair.
So cool.
So really wide-ranging events. And what I think it says, this is the first time that we as a region have all come together and said the future of Western Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh is frontier technology. We want to be the world's epicenter for physical AI, robotics, AI commercialization, and we are all working together in that unified vision. So I like I said, I don't think there are few better places to build a company right now than at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. You will have so much support, and we are thrilled to invite students every year who want to work towards that goal.
Oh yeah, such a cool event, and something I assume you're hoping that you will do
every
after
year. Yes,
and
absolutely,
grow.
absolutely. And in fact, this is the fourth time we're doing the lab to market event that I mentioned. We do it in Pittsburgh in the fall and in San Francisco in the winter. And we've recently had a handful of seed fundraisers that have successfully closed, all between $30 and $50 million each. That we trace back to that event. So these events have become, they're not just events for event's sake. We are getting checks out of them. We're getting support for our startups, corporate partners, and customers.
Super interesting. Meredith Meyer Grelli, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Emily.
and good luck as you prep for StartUP PGH.
Thank you.
The Tech Perspectives podcast is made possible in part by the MBA Class of 2016 Technology Fund.